Sangat talks. Sangat talks. Sangat talks.
It's a pleasure to introduce our next speaker, a medical entrepreneur, doctor, and podcaster, dedicated to transforming healthcare and empowering communities. Please welcome Dr. Jaskaran Singh.
Okay, guys, let's start with Guruji's Fateh. Vaheguru Ji ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji ki Fateh. Thank you for that great introduction. That sounded cooler than it actually is, so I'm just going to break it down really simply. I am a real doctor. That's the number one question I get asked by people who meet me about my podcast. Are you like a real doctor? I'm like, yeah, I see patients. You know, like when they see me in hospital, I've had times where I treat patients, they come home, they send us an Instagram message, and like, oh, you're that guy, I'm still in the hospital. I was like, yeah, I'm a real doctor. So that is true. So I'm a consultant in acute medicine with a special interest in cardiology. I'm a podcaster, and I'm a medical entrepreneur. But these are all titles, like by Mani Singh Singh ji said, I love that. These are just titles. Titles ultimately to do seva. And that's all it is. It's a game of which seva you're going to fall into. Okay, and that's what I'm going to really be sharing about today. Feel free to take notes. What I try and do when I give my talks is, yes, I'm going to talk about some abstract concepts, high-level stuff, but really the nitty-gritty, the tactical, the stuff that's really served me and continues to serve me to today. So, let's start with this. So the first question, guys, is why are you here today? So guys on the front row, that's the thing about sitting on the front row, you get picked on a lot. Why are you here today? You need to be loud and proud.
To learn about other people and like how they've got to the position they're in.
Okay, so you want to be inspired? Yes. Okay, guys, somebody else? Why are you here today? Singh, why are you here?
To learn about all of the different jobs.
Achha, okay, that's a really good answer as well. You can smile, you know, I'm not trying, it's not an exam. Huh? Okay, so on your left, my right here, this is my spiritual teacher, Sant Baba Ishi Singh Ji Maharaj, Radha Bale Mahapurush. And Babaji kept a diary during his life, and now it's been translated, most of it into English. And there's one thing I think about a lot, which Maharaj talks about in his Divans. And Maharaj says, in life, every person, whether they be sick, non-sick, gora, whatever, they're all one of these types of people. There are 4 types of bhagats in the world. So Maharaj said, 4 qisam de bhagat hunde hain. The first type, dunya mangde hain. They want something of the world. Okay, so that could be the Bugatti, that could be the big house, that could be whatever. It could be to do amazing seva. It doesn't have to be something materialistic, but they want something in the world, dunya. The second type of bhagat is they want deen. That means they want something afterwards, so that swarga, that heaven, that next whatever it is. Okay. The third type of bhagat is they want malabt. They want to meet Vaheguru. Okay. And the fourth type of bhagat is jine mil chuke hain, who've already met Rab. So Maharaj says there are only 4 types of people. And at various points in your life, you'll find that maybe you're going to change what you want from your life. So that's the first thing. Second thing is on the right here. Does anybody know who this is? Anybody know? Yes, Bhagat Fariji. It's a beautiful painting. It's the famous thing where Babaji is talking to the crow and he's saying, please spare my eyes so I can have darshan of Vaheguru. The reason I put Bhagat Fariji's photo here is there's a pankti which I say almost daily, which I'm going to share with you. Sometimes when we read Bani, we think it's not literal. I'm here to tell you that what Maharaj is telling you is absolutely literal. Okay, so here's a pankti. Aap savare main mile. If you give up yourself, you will meet me. Aap savare main mile. Main milyan sukh hoye. If you meet me, though, you'll have sukh. Not khushi. Khushi is transient happiness. Sukh is anand, is bliss, is forever. It's that straight line that Bhai Mani Singh was talking about. It's not the fluctuation. Aap sware main milyan sukh hoye. Je tu mera hoye. If you become mine. Rabb is saying this to you. If you become mine, sab jagd tera hoye. The whole world becomes yours. So people, as young people, you might think, I want the world, right? Manjite jagjit. If you win your mind, you win the world. And Maharaj is giving you the answer. If you become mine, everything becomes yours. And again, this isn't just abstract. Quick saki for you. There was once a king who left his kingdom. Big king, had lots. Think of like King Charles, let's use him as an example, and all his land and all his assets and everything. He left everything to his young son to go and do bhakti. And when his son got older, he said, you know what, my dad lives by the pani and he has very little possessions and he should be enjoying, the kingdom. So he went out with his army, like 100,000 bande, and he said, I'm going to bring my dad back. And he said, Dad, I understand that you want to be a bhakt and you want nothing to do with the running of the kingdom. So why not just do your bhakti there and I'll do the day-to-day running of the kingdom? And it sounds quite sensible, right? And the king said to him, he said, look, I used to do what you're doing now. If I was going to get the happiness, I would have stayed there and done the bhakti. He goes, but no. And maybe one day you'll realize. And after a long kind of, argument, he basically said to his son, okay, here's the game. I'll go back if you can recover this safety pin. So he took the safety pin off and he threw it in the pani. He goes, Hamari sui nikalo. Go and get my safety pin from the pani. And his son's like, Dad, I can buy like 1,000 safety pins. Why do you want this one safety pin? He says, no, that's not the game. If you want me to come back, get that safety pin. I said, okay. So 100,000 men, big army, sare pani ch var gaye. So they're all in the water now. And they're there for hours and hours, and they can't get this pin. And then the king himself, the son, right? He went into the pani, tried to find it. Couldn't find it. And so after a couple of hours, he said, Dad, look, no one can find it. He goes, you give up? And he said, yeah, we give up. That king, the Bhagat, then turns to the pani. He said, Brahm Devta. So that is the god of the water. Hamari sui nakalo. And in a moment, basically a fish, a machi came, and the sui was in the mouth. And he goes, here it is. He goes, you have a bit of raj over these people. Mere sare duniya te raj chaldi hai. Aap sware main milyan sukh hoye, je tu mera hoye, sab jagat tera hoye. It's literal. That's what Maharaj is telling us. Okay? Let's move on. Who's this guy on the left, guys? Everyone's heard his name. Why have you heard his name? He wasn't a very rich man. Why do you remember his name and he wasn't a very rich man? Famous for being smart. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Look at this tiny little equation here, guys. This tiny little equation, E equals mc squared, which all of us have heard of, even if we don't understand what it means, special relativity, okay? But it changes and governs how we understand the universe today. You'd expect that with such a big concept which he explained, the equation would be very long and very complicated. And maybe when he started it was, but look at the simplicity in this. Simplicity is the highest form of elegance. The KISS principle is very simply, it's nothing to do with doing papiyan. KISS principle is keep it simple, stupid. Okay? Now this is important because we have this habit as humans of adding complexity to things, thinking that we're doing something good by adding complexity. Right? I'll give you an example. So one of my medical businesses is teaching doctors, postgraduate doctors, to get through certain exams so they can become consultants. So when we set up the company, my skill set is I'm very good at teaching people. So me and my business partner, we were like, we're going to teach every person. We're going to teach medical students, we're going to teach pharmacy students, we're going to teach this student, this. And we set up, we had a website, it had like 10 different pages, we had 10 different courses running at the same time. I lost my hair, my wife didn't see me. It wasn't a very good time, right? And what had happened is, I was adding complexity, thinking it was a good thing. Now fast forward, so this company I set up in 2018, the year after I got married. We're in 2025 now, and now we run one course, we focus on one group, so we call this a niche, okay? And now we are the best at doing this. We just signed a deal with the biggest company in the UK that sort of give past medical questions for when they get ready for exams, and then we partnered with them, and now we deliver that one course. Simplicity is very important, guys. The reason we don't like simplicity is because we think it's not sexy. We don't think it's good enough. We need to make things complex. I'm here to tell you that simplicity is the highest form of elegance. Steve Jobs, you've all heard of Steve Jobs? I hope you've all heard of Steve Jobs. Who's got an iPhone? Okay. Every year Steve Jobs used to come out. What did he wear when he revealed the iPhone? Which kapre did he wear? Black. The turtleneck, the blue jeans, not too dissimilar to me. And actually what's interesting is he inspired me. Whenever I do a speech now, this is my uniform. You look at Mark Zuckerberg, he's got exactly the same thing. These guys have billions of pounds, but they focus on a concept which I like to focus on, which is frugality. Okay? Frugality doesn't mean being cheap. That's the important concept here. Frugality is spending your time, effort, and energy on things that you value. Not what the dunya values, not what you're told to value, what you value. Okay? Anybody know who this is? Jim Carrey. This is Jim Carrey's quote, and I love it. The effect you have on others is the most valuable currency there is. This is what drives me now. And this thing at the top here, impact is greater than status. So our podcast has been around now for probably about 3 years. On tomorrow, actually, we're going to be recording the 200th episode. Where's my boy? My boy Bundan, he's in the room here. He's actually our main editor as well. He's smiling now. I put him on the spot. That's good, isn't it? And when we started the podcast, if you asked us why did we start the podcast, that's very different to why we do it today. Indy and I went on this weekend, we sat in a cabin, and we went there to answer this question, what is the reason that we have this podcast? And by the end of those 2 days, we distilled these long pages of basically working out into impact. It's all about impact. What is the legacy we're going to leave by the work and the seva that we do while we're here? Now, in the podcasting world, that's in the form of conversations, bringing on good guests, talking about things that are often not talked about. But you'll all have a vehicle for that, and it's discovering what that vehicle is. The Japanese have a great word. It's called ikigai. And ikigai simply means your reason to be. Okay, it's your purpose, let's call it that. But the Japanese break it down even further, and what they say is the ikigai is broken down into something you're good at, something you love, something the world needs, and something you can be paid for. So those 4 things together will form your ikigai, your reason to be. So guys, initially you might focus on status, but the status will not sustain you. These are transient things. The day I became a doctor, the day you walk on stage, the day you graduate, and you hold that fake, thing. You remember that's not your degree. You feel good, man. I felt like I was king of the world. And the next week I'm doing a night shift, getting bleeped at every second of the night, thinking, is this it? Like I was told when I became a doctor and I got that title, I'm going to be king of the world. And it didn't happen. Now, I'm not here to tell you not to become doctors. It's not that either. Do it if you want to do it for the right reasons. If you want an honest conversation about what it's like to be a doctor in the UK, happy to have that conversation with you. But doing it for status will not last, but doing it for impact will. And ultimately, you're all going to have an impact on this world. The question is, how big is that impact going to be? Here's a simple question for you. Why do we still remember Guru Nanak Dev Ji? Why do we still remember Jesus Christ? They weren't rich people. And if I ask you to tell me the names of the kings at the time of those 2 people, you'll struggle. So why? Why do we remember them? Because they left a legacy, impact on the world, the seva that they chose to do. All right, let's talk about success principles. So this is now the nitty-gritty. So principle number 1, progress, not perfection. Perfection does not exist. Understand that now. Perfection does not exist. You can aim for perfection and you will attain excellence, and that is very possible. But if you focus on the progress, you won't be hindered. The problem with trying to focus on perfection is you'll get humbled very quickly, understand you're not perfect, get into a negative mindset, and stop trying. Whereas if you focus on progress, no matter how big the progress, you'll always keep moving forward. That's very important. Number 2, discipline, not motivation. Motivation is like the coffee. You have a coffee, you have an espresso, you get that kick of energy, you have the Red Bull, you have the Monster. Stay away from those drinks, please. They're very bad for you, okay? You have that, you feel a kick of energy, but it wears off at some point. And that's why motivation is not important. Motivation is not needed. There are 2 words in life, should and must, okay? The person that says I should go to the gym never goes to the gym. The person that says I must go to the gym will go to the gym. So in life, what you have to decide is, what is a should for me and what is a must for me? Once you decide, that's the switch. Once you decide this is a must, it will get done. So create the musts in your life. Not everything can be a must. That's important to understand. Otherwise, you will burn out. I burnt out, right? I had really, really bad crippling anxiety. And where did that come from? I tried to do everything. Okay, so I was a doctor, great. Then I set up the businesses. Then I was like, I'm going to be a property investor. I'm going to be a public speaker. I'm going to go into cryptocurrency. I'm going to go to Forex. I did everything. And I burnt out. hard. Okay? So what did I learn coming out the other side? Go deep, not wide. I'll say it again. Go deep, not wide. So you decide on the things where you want to build a legacy, and you start going deep rather than spreading yourself thin over everything. Okay? Number 3, principles, not fads. In the world of social media, in the world of these, what we call these fake gurus, now I love this term because obviously Guruji is something very different to us as Sikh, but obviously in the non-Sikh world, you have these gurus, and they say it like that, it's always like that, isn't it? Gurus, and so you get all these guys who are on social media trying to teach you things. There may be some gyan in what they're telling you, right? But ultimately, they're probably trying to sell you some stuff which isn't that useful, okay? These are fads. Principles haven't changed for 100 years. Like Baji said, hard work, discipline. That's never going to change, okay? This graph, I love this graph. This graph is about the exponential increase in your improvement over 1 year. So 365 is the number of days in a year. If you improve by 1%, every single day, after 1 year, you've improved by 37%. But the day-to-day doesn't feel like that much. Incremental is very hard to see. So for example, when I started in the gym 4 years ago with my personal trainer, after a year, my lifts had gone up. But if you looked at my physique when we were doing our progress pictures, you wouldn't see much. But the lifts are going up. So there definitely was progress. But day to day, it's hard for you to see that improvement. So what is success? Success is very, very boring, and I tell this to people all the time. You think success is this very sexy thing. It's not. It's small things done consistently over time. That's it. 3 years ago, if I stood here and told you about my podcast, you wouldn't have known about it. Now, we go to shows, we walk around, whatever, people recognize us. Why? We're not doing anything new. It's still the same thing. Yes, we're better at doing it. We're better because we focus on progress, not perfection. That's come over time. But it's small things, 1 podcast a week, consistently, over time. That's it, and that will apply to anything you do. Success principles number 2. Right, anybody know where this photo is taken from? It's from a film. Has anybody seen this film? Okay, it's from the film The Founder. You should all watch it. It's on Amazon Prime. So it's about a guy called Ray Kroc who made McDonald's very, very famous. Okay, and so this scene is actually an aerial shot on a tennis court where they're working out something called the Speedy System. The Speedy System is genius, and I want you to apply this concept to your life. Speedy System means if you go to any McDonald's in the world, any Subway, any Domino's, to an extent you can think about in the UK, Gurdwara and how we have langar, there's a system in which it operates, which means people who are operating the system don't need to think about how to do something because that's been done. Okay? So when you're building something in life, when you're building a business, when you're building a brand, whatever it might be, focus on the systems and the processes. If you have good systems, good processes, which means you have the right people in place, you have the right organization, you have the right structuring, it makes building that legacy, that impact, easier. If you start with the end in mind, then you will have success. So focus on the system and the process. Right, number 2. This is from a book called 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Stephen Covey. Very long book. This is basically the Najora. This is what you need to understand. When you're born into life, most of us, not all, most of us, all of us are dependent. So when you're a baby, you have to change nappies, you have to be fed, all this kind of stuff. Can't get around that. As you get older, most of us become independent. Some still stay dependent. Not a good look. Parents are laughing now, aren't they? Like, I'm bhi kar liya kar, na? Right? And independence is good. The problem with independence is you can't scale with independence. Scale means you can't go to the levels you want to go to. So I'll give you an example. As a consultant, when I get to the shop floor, so I work in A&E, when I'm there, I could check the patient in, I could do the first set of observations, I could do their ECG, I could take the blood test, I could clean the floor, I could do all of these things, but should I? That's the question. And I'm not saying should I from an akar position, it's not my job to do it. I'm saying it from this. When I do anything, the question I ask myself is, what is the best use of my time and my energy today? Which part of the system and process do I need to focus on that I can set on fire? And then I build a system around that other people do other bits. So in the same way in a hospital, if I want to effectively take care of, 100 patients, then I can't do it alone. So then the highest state, so you've got dependence, independence, interdependence. That's the highest state. It's learning how to work with teams. So for example, another example, I invest in property. My role as a property investor is to find good deals, but I don't do the building work. I don't do the letting. I don't manage the property. I don't find the money. The broker does that. I could do all these things, and it would take me a lot of time. But I focus on what I'm good at, and that's finding the deals. Okay, so learning how to become interdependent. Next concept, wisdom. Wisdom is not the same as knowledge. When you're young, there'll be a lot of words that you use which you think are exactly the same. My advice as you get older is, there's a bit of advice that will stop you having arguments in the future, which is when you're speaking with somebody, when you're debating with somebody, and that's a skill, guys, I want you all to focus on. The ability to debate and critically think. Very important skill. People don't focus on it now. You should definitely focus on it. Agree your definitions. Understand what the definition of a word is. So when you say this, sorry, so when I'm speaking to somebody and they say something, I say, before we carry on, can you define what you mean by this? Okay, that's a bit of a side point. Wisdom is not the same as knowledge. Wisdom is made up of three things. Knowledge is, I kind of know what needs to be done based on what somebody's told me or what I've seen. Then you have to do something with that knowledge, so go and do it. And then you have to collect feedback. And what Benji was saying in her last talk, that word is so important, pivot moments. And the pivot moments are when you try something, you test it. Testing is important. So as a scientist, as myself, hypothesis, right? I think this should work, I think this will work, but you will never know until you test it. So you have to test it. Test things in life, get the feedback, don't get disheartened by the feedback, and then now here's the thing, you'll have a point here where you say, well actually this doesn't work, stop, that's okay. Or, no, need to improve, make the improvement, move on. Okay? Example, the first investment property I bought, we had a builder, ended up being a dodgy builder. We had loads of rising mold, damp basically in the house that came after a couple of months. And so the change we made, the feedback was, okay, we need to vet the builders now. Now we have a trusted builder that's gone through a vetting process and is accountable on the other side if we need more work doing. Okay, so you get feedback, change it. That's the wisdom. Okay, and then this principle, busy and productive, they're not the same thing. A lot of people that you will see look like they're doing work. Now, the adults will know this. When you go to work and you look at certain people, and if you just stopped your own work and you just looked at them, you'd see they're not doing anything. They're just running around, looking busy. And the NHS is a perfect example because the NHS is so busy that no one has time to actually stop and be like, are you actually doing any work? Because you've got so much work to do yourself, no one does this. But I've actually had the position of looking at this. I'm like, you're not doing anything, you're just looking busy. Productivity is a completely different thing. Another thing I want you guys to focus on is when somebody asks you to do something, remember, in their mind, it's the most important and urgent task. That doesn't mean it's important and urgent for you. Just because it's important for them doesn't mean it's important for you. Very important concept. The mental switch I have in my brain is, this is why I ask myself, this is what I say to myself, don't do efficiently what need not be done at all. I'll say it again. Don't do efficiently what need not be done at all. This is the concept of, we fill our time, Parkinson's law, we fill our time with things to feel like we're being productive, when actually we're just filling time, okay? Very important concept. Okay. Here's a question. Why is a hitman, an assassin, paid more than a palliative care nurse? Real question. Which I want real responses. Includes the adults as well.
Hitman's got big consequences, he gets caught.
So risk. Okay, risk is something. Guys, kids? Yes, buddy.
They both have the ability to possibly take a life.
Okay. It's got a dark angle there. I wasn't thinking about that with the nurse, but yes, in theory, they have Lucy Letby, we saw what happened, so yeah, it does happen.
Maybe a hitman has a high level of skill.
So skill, risk. I'm not going to go with that dark answer there. Okay, what else, guys? Why does the hitman get paid more money than a palliative care nurse?
Covered by law. The laws, the hitman, this is a legality framework. We're legally not allowed to take a life. Isn't that law, it's a similar thing, but one's covered by legality and one's not. Legally, now I think the right.
That is part of it. I hadn't considered that. What I would say is in the UK, we don't practice euthanasia, so I wouldn't say they are actually taking life. They maybe kind of facilitate the last parts of life, but they're not actively doing anything. Here's the answer. Your income is determined by the number of people able and willing to do jobs that others want doing, not by social contribution. This is how dark Kaljug is. This is how dark the world is. Basically what I'm saying is, we all agree that somebody doing seva in a hospital, doctor, nurse, jo bhi hove, is doing a good thing. So in an ideal world, they should be paid more than a hitman, paid more than a footballer, but they're not. You know that. So I'm trying to answer the question is, why does that exist? The reason is this. And it comes down to supply and demand. That's basically what this is saying. It's supply and demand, which we have set. We've agreed as a society that we value this skill set. How many people are able to do it, willing to do it, and is needed by another? So the assassin has a skill set which is required by somebody. Now, let me just caveat this. I'm not asking you or telling you to become hitmen or assassins, okay? Remember, kirtikoro. That's our guiding principle, okay? So it doesn't fit within that. But it's important to understand that as you get older and you think about, well, what job do I want to do? Think about, well, how many people can do that job? How do I increase my own value? That's the point I'm trying to make, okay? The reason why the President of the United States, Donald Trump to be now, is the most powerful person in the world is he is a decision maker. If you focus on becoming a decision maker, you've ultimately increased your value. If you increase your value, your income, your status, the impact you can have, all will go up. So think about, what are the skills I want to improve? How am I going to work on those? And where will that take me? And the final slide. Okay, so this guy on the left, guys, who's this? Jeff Bezos, Amazon. Okay, and he's got this great quote. And he says, look, you can live life in two ways. You can either have a life of comfort and pleasure, or you can have a life of adventure and service. The problem with comfort and pleasure, so there's a word for this, it's called hedonism. Hedonism is a belief system which basically says the function of human life is to seek pleasure, and that's it. But again, when's the last time you guys went on holiday? Very good. Where'd you go? Don't say Wales. No, okay, good. Proper holiday on a plane. Right, how long did you go for, Singh? Okay, so you traveled around for a week, yeah? And after a week, did you feel like coming back? You don't want to come back? You want to stay on holiday? Okay. Imagine this then, bro. In the future, right? Imagine I can put you on holiday forever. You can do whatever you want all the time. You got no calm. You can be on the beach, playing Xbox, go meet Ronaldo, whatever you want. Would you be happy? Okay. Sort of, because? Oh, you can see your friends and your family. That's absolutely fine. That's thrown in. Would you be happy? See, it's good. You're answering exactly the way I thought you should be, which is we all think that the things we aspire to, the things that we want, the holiday on the beach, doing nothing, is great. But for how long? 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, and then you're like, man, this is so boring. That's the life of comfort and pleasure. Comfort and pleasure without any meaningful work is a very sad existence. Okay? So I like what Bezos says, which is focus on adventure and service. Again, tying to that principle of seva. Right, dude in the middle, Michael Jackson, you obviously know who this is, okay? Happiness is not about money, and money is not evil. This is a very important concept. Happiness is not about money, like Mani Singh said. Why is money not evil? Because here's what I want you to understand about money. Money is utility. Money gives you choices. Money can give you freedom. Money can let you decide how you spend your time. Okay? It's different if you're in love with money. If you want to sit in the bathtub and play with paper notes like Scarface, that's a whole different thing. At that point, money is evil. But actually understanding that I can use this resource to do the things I want to do, to operate on higher levels of seva. Look at everything the building we're sitting in. If there was no money, this building isn't built. This talk doesn't happen. None of this happens without money. So stop thinking in this concept way of, oh, money is really bad. No. How you use the money is the important concept here. But happiness itself is not about money. Happiness will come. Here's what Viktor Frankl says. Viktor Frankl was the Jewish psychiatrist who survived Auschwitz. He was in the concentration camps, 1945. He survived. And he basically said this: happiness cannot be pursued. So we're talking again about the shadows and the sun. You can't chase happiness. Happiness can be ensued. Ensued means it's the byproduct. It's the byproduct of doing something meaningful. So that's going to come anyway. If you focus on the impact, if you focus on the legacy, if you focus on the seva, if you focus on the ikigai, if you focus on the thing that puts you on fire, the money, the success, the fame, all that other stuff, all that apne payana. Okay? And now this is probably the very important thing for your generation. So Morpheus from The Matrix, great film. As you get older, please watch The Matrix. Like massively ahead of his time. Learn how to think, not what to think. Probably the most important thing I'm going to say today. Learn how to think, not what to think. Jordan Peterson, same famous psychologist at the moment. Jordan Peterson says 95% of the opinions that you have are not your opinions. 95%. Which means you're recycling other people's opinions, which you've read somewhere, you've heard in conversation. Think about it. When somebody's talking about, let's say, President Trump. Trump's a good example because he's very polarizing. If you mention Trump, you may not have an actual opinion about Trump, but because you've heard somebody else say something, you're like, oh yeah, he's crazy. And you'll jump in on the argument because you want to feel like you're part of the conversation. You're not thinking at that point, okay? So learn how to think, not what to think. And that's it. So guys, I think I said this at the start anyway, but I'm a doctor, podcaster, speaker. I get to do some cool things. It's not been easy. A lot of life is you do things, you get feedback, and you improve. But ultimately, go deep, not wide. Find the things where you want to build a legacy, start building them out, focus on progress, not perfection. Over a long time, done consistently, you'll have whatever you want to achieve. That's it. Thank you for having me today.